Hi, I'm Nicholas Lodge and I'd like to introduce you to my Flower Pro Ultimate Filler Flower Mold. This innovative mold can be used for over 20 different flowers, buds and blossoms. In this video presentation, I'm going to show you how to use these two cavities here. And these two cavities are used for making baby's breath or gypsophilia, for also mimosa and for pussy willow. So baby's breath or gypsophilia is a very popular product used in fresh flowers, and so a lot of times when you buy a bunch of fresh roses or fresh flowers, you're going to get baby's breath or gypsophilia mixed in with that. I'm going to first of all start off with the buds. So for the buds, I'm going to use my size guide, and you actually need, I'm using here white petal paste or gum paste or flower modeling paste. You're going to use number 1 size and number 2 size balls of paste. So when we use the size guide, how we measure the paste in there is we measure the paste so it sort of sits into the mold, so about 1/3 below and 2/3 above the top of it. All right, so just pop it into there. So as I said, it's about 1/3 below the mold and about 2/3 above the top. These are 30 gauge wires. These are actually cut into quarter lengths. And all I'm going to do for making the buds is you're going to take your little ball of paste. Going to make this into a little tiny ball, and I'm just going to take a little egg white. So I'm going to use a little egg white on a paintbrush and just going to moisten the end of the wire. So I'm just going to moisten the end of the wire. Because these are so tiny, I don't put a hook on these wires. Okay, I'm just going to push the wire into the little ball of paste like that, and the egg white will just obviously once that dry, that will form a good foundation. And then so for example, for a larger bud, you would then just do exactly the same here. So again, just a little bit of egg white onto here. So first of all, you'd make your buds. Now we're going to move on to the flowers. So when we make the flowers, we're going to use this part of the cavity. And you can see here, the cavity has obviously 2 sizes, a smaller and a larger size. So for the smaller size baby's breath, we're going to use a number 3 size ball of paste. So there's going to be a number 3 put on the size guide. So again, 1/3 below, 2/3 above. I'm just going to condition this with just a little bit of vegetable shortening or vegetable fat. And I'm going to just put a little touch of cornstarch onto this little ball. And I'm going to just drop that into the bottom of my mold. Using my companion stick, this is actually included with the Filler Flowers mold. This companion stick, which has a little ball tool, a shaft and a needle, I use for most of the flower elements in here and lots of other flowers. This will become your, as I said, your best friend, your best companion as a little tool. So you're just going to just lightly press that in. On some of my other video presentations showing, for example, like the hydrangea buds, I use a very similar concept. Okay, so now we're going to take your wire. So these are my wires here, and I want to just make a smallish hook on the end of these wires. So these, as I said, are 30 gauge wires. So just going to make just a smallish hook on the end of them. All right, so really almost like a smaller hook as you can make on the end of the wire, so quite tiny. Again, you're just going to brush a little bit of egg white onto the hook. And then I'm just going to push this into the mold like this. And then we're going to flex the mold, okay? So we're going to flex it. You see what's happening is the paste is being pushed around where the wire is, okay? So then when you take this out of the mold, you're really almost going to get this little textured center part. But for the baby's breath, what we want to do is use a little bit of cornstarch on your fingers. I just want to just taper the back down just a little bit like this. So you get this classic, almost like a cone shape. Now on the end of the little companion tool, there is this little needle, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the little needle onto a pad here, and then using the needle, I'm actually going to just sort of texture. So you're just going to go around, so you're going to get this almost like texture, so it looks a little bit like a baby carnation. So you're just going to go around the edge of this with your little tool. Now this is going to be the small bud, this is going to be the small flower, so this won't have as much detail, it won't be as large, but you're just going to just make this little feathered end onto it. So you're going to get this little feathery piece, just remold that, and then with your needle tool, I'm just going to push into there, just usually like 3 times on the little half open flower. So you're going to get this little, so this represents almost like a half open little flower. Okay, so you just press in 1, 2, 3. Now when we do the larger flower, we're going to, we want really more of a blossom shape. So we're going to use similar technique, and you'll see this a little easier because obviously it's a little bit bigger. So we're going to take again, this is number 4 size ball of paste. We're going to put a little bit of cornstarch into there. I'm going to drop that into the bottom of the mold. And then I'm going to press this in. Again, just going to take your wire, so just show you the hook again. So remember, it's going to take your hook, just a smallish hook on the end of here. And we're using 30 gauge wire because this is a very delicate flower. So when we tape this together, we don't want the stem to look too heavy looking. So a little bit of egg white goes onto the hooked wire here. And again, this is going to just go into the paste. And then you're going to just flex the mold. Usually I found it's easier to do this by lifting it up, but you can actually do it even down like that. But usually I just lift this up. So again, you see how I'm just working the paste around the mold here like so. So it's going to push this around. And when you flex this and take this out of the mold, you're going to get this flower shape. So this is of course going to be the bigger one. So again, you're just going to just mold this round. So you're going to get the shape of the flower. And again, we're going to now use the same technique here with your veining with the needle tool. We're going to just sort of feather around the edge here. So we're just going to just feather around the edge. So you see how you're going to get a little bit more of a carnation here. So this is a lot bigger, so it's a little bit easier to actually do this. I was just showing you in progression of size, but you just want to just frill around the edge of this. If your wire feels like it's a little bit, just push the wire back on if needed. And at this point here, we're going to now use your needle tool. I'm going to just almost like create like 5 little blossoms. 5 little blossoms. So you see how you get almost like a little 5-petal frilled blossom. If your back is a little bit long, you can trim this off with some scissors. So you can just trim that off with some scissors and then re-mold this around. Okay, so that is how we would make the baby's breath buds and how we make the little baby's breath flower. The next step is going to be to put the little calyx on these and then to assemble them. So now your flowers and buds are dry, we're going to put the little calyx on. Now the easiest way to do that is with a food art pen. So the fine end we're going to use for the little buds. So for the little buds, I'm going to just put like 5 little green lines onto here. So this will actually represent the little calyx on the bud. Now you could also use, alternatively, you could use a paintbrush, but generally the pen is the easiest way to go here. So you'll have this little green calyx on the underneath part of the bud. And with the thicker end, we're going to use that for the actual flower. So again, I'm going to do then 5 lines. So 3, 4, 5 lines on the little flower. You can see that a little easier. This is a really super easy way to make a little calyx on such a small flower. Now, so once you have all of your, however many flowers and buds you have together, we're going to group these into some little groupings. Now, when we do this, we need very, very skinny floral tape. So this is half-width floral tape. We also have on using the tape cutter, and on some of the other videos I've shown using quarter-width tape. But quarter-width tape is even too thick. So what I actually do there is I take some half-width tape, and actually using a pair of scissors, I would just cut this into 3 sections. So just because you don't need a huge amount of this, so you're just cutting this down. So you're going to cut the half-width tape into 3 sections. So this is actually 1/6 of the original width of the roll. So this gives you very, very skinny tape, which is going to be perfect to put this flower together. Now, when we put the baby's breath together, I just take some tweezers. And then with some tweezers, I just bend out, like for example here, I have a bud, another bud. Start your floral tape. Because see, this isn't really going to add any extra bulk to the stem, see? And then you can put in your little, for example, like you can put in a little flower here, like this. And then you just would tape this together. And then the idea is that you would then just take these little groupings And you can see here what I've done is I started off with the first grouping. I've just put in here a 22 gauge wire or 24 depending on how big a spray you need to make. I just added a 22 gauge wire there, and you're just going to tape these on. So as you go down, you see how, and you can make this also, can make this more dimensional. So if you're going to use it like in the center of an arrangement, you can actually do it like flat like this if it was going to sit in a bouquet or a spray. But you can also make it more dimensional. You see by adding the flowers clusters to the side here, and you're just going to come around and around and around. And then once you pretty much get the flower and bud and you're happy with the size of the spray, then I would just finish this off using some half-width tape. So then you just take half-width tape and you're just going to just tape down your stem like this. And then you can just sort of open this up. But the nice thing about this, because these are on very soft wires, they're easy to integrate into your flowers. So when you're using this product on in a spray, you can of course take this and put it in small clusters, or you could do a larger spray of this in between roses, for example, in an arrangement. So this is the baby's breath that we have made here using the Ultimate Filler Flower mold. So an alternative to using the baby's breath gypsophilia mold is to also make mimosa. Mimosa is a beautiful spring blossom, so this is lovely in a spring arrangement, but could also be used during the summertime as well. And for the mimosa, we're going to be using the same two cavities we use for the baby's breath. So first of all, you would cover a 30 gauge wire, green or white, with quarter width green floral tape. All right, so that would just be covered all the way down, very similar to the way I do the hydrangea. And then I'm going to cut this wire into 6. So I will cut the wire into half, and then I'll cut each half into 3. So that will give me obviously like 6 sections of wire. And then I would make my little hooks on the end of here. Not too small, because we're going to be using slightly more. So I'm going to come about 2 centimeters down my tweezers. I'm going to make just a little hook on the end of this. And then I will take some yellow paste. So this is some yellow gum paste, flower modeling paste. And I have number 4 and number 5 size balls of paste. So number 4 will be for the smaller, number 5 for the larger. So when we use this, because this is really similar technique to the to making the baby's breath, I'll show you the larger one. So this will be number 5. So again, we're just going to work a little bit of vegetable shortening into your paste here. And then going to put a little bit of cornstarch onto this. And then it's going to go into the mold here. So this will pretty much fill the mold. You can just press this in using your little companion tool. And you're going to then take your wire. You're going to put some egg white onto this. So again, just brush a little bit of egg white onto your wire here. And then I'm going to push this into the paste. All right, and again, I'm just going to flex this around the... So what I'm doing here is I'm going to flex this around. So you're creating a little bit more of a ball here. We'll have a little bit of excess paste to trim off when we take this out of the mold. All right, so ultimately when we flex this and we take this out, you see how you're going to get this sort of fuzzy little center part. All right, so all you need to do here is just with your scissors, just take your scissors and just trim off that sort of excess base part here and just mold this around. And that is really how we would make as I said, the mimosa. And you can see this is the smaller size mimosa. This is the number 4. This is the number 5. So those would just be dried, would be put together in little groupings. I've used actually the medium size fern fronds, and they make perfect mimosa leaves. And then once you get that assembled, I've just put a little bit of, used a slightly darker yellow, like a golden yellow on top. And then I've used a little bit of green color onto the leaves, and used some leaf glaze to just brush onto the leaves to make them a little shiny. So that is the mimosa. When we make Pussy Willow, all you do is you do exactly the same as I did for the mimosa, except you're going to use, first of all, brown floral tape. So you cover your 30 gauge wire with brown floral tape, and then you cover down, cut it into 6 sections. Number 4 and number 5 of white paste, white petal paste, gum paste, pressed into the mold, so you can see exactly the same as the mimosa. And then you assemble this very tight to the stem. And just what I did there is I went with my brown floral tape up and down a couple of times. And then I just actually texture the tape with my scissors so it looks a little bit like the bark. And you do these in little groups of 1, 2, 3. And then what I do there is I've dusted this with a pale gray. So I took some gray petal dust, dusting powder with some cornstarch, and dusted just a very, very pale gray. And then I then put a little bit of pale chocolate. So you can see right at the base here, we have the pale chocolate. So as you can see, these are 3 really useful components that we could use in a spray, in an arrangement for a spring, summer. Obviously, this baby's breath could be used any time of year. These are a little bit more seasonal, but obviously, as I said, very useful, versatile. And as I said, both of those, all 3 of those are made just using those 2 little cavities in my Ultimate Filler Flower mold. So I hope you have a lot of fun using this mold and other parts of the Filler Flower mold. This has been Nicholas Lodge, and I look forward to seeing you really soon.